Want to speak real Arabic from your first lesson? Sign up for your free lifetime account at ArabicPod101.com.
Hi, welcome to Introduction to Arabic. My name is Alicia, and I'm joined by...
Hi everyone, I'm Yafa. In this series, you will learn everything you need to know to get started learning Arabic.
That's right, and we're here to help guide you on your journey. In this lesson, you'll learn the reasons why you should start learning a new language, why you should learn Arabic in particular, and how to get started. There are countless reasons, but perhaps the biggest one of all is that it could actually change your life. Learning a new language unlocks new pathways that are off limits to you now. There are certain things that you simply cannot do without having the technical or cultural skills that come from learning a new language.
Like working or living in another country.
Knowing another language provides you with greater job opportunities. You have the freedom to move to another country halfway around the world and be able to earn a living, or even better yet, build a career from it, instead of just being stuck in one place. Language allows you to visit or live in places that you may never even have considered going, simply because that wasn't a possibility for you. Knowing another language simply gives you more options to choose from.
And learning a new language also helps you to be more open-minded and see the world from a new perspective.
Language and culture go hand in hand. The world is a big place, and by broadening your understanding of other cultures, it allows you to be more empathetic and understanding of the many different ways that people live their lives. With language, you're able to see and experience more, which helps you to grow as a person.
Learning a new language also improves your memory.
Several studies have consistently shown that those who study another language have improved memory as opposed to those who didn't learn another language. Learning another language also keeps your brain healthy by significantly delaying the onset of Alzheimer's and dementia. This difference can be as much as 4 to 5 more years of quality life.
And those are just some of the reasons you should learn another language. The list just goes on and on.
Now you know the benefits of studying another language, but why should you learn Arabic in particular?
The Arab world is well known as a ceaseless supply of oil. It's rich in resources with enormous oil and natural gas reserves. In fact, 7 of the top 20 countries that produce the most oil come from Arab nations.
Not to mention that Arabic is spoken in more than 20 countries with roughly 300 million native speakers worldwide. This makes Arabic one of the most widely spoken languages in the world. Knowing Arabic opens up many business and career opportunities.
The region's instability has not affected its tourism industry, which is considered the fastest growing sector in the region, with Egypt, UAE, Lebanon, Saudi Arabia, and Jordan leading the way. Surely you have heard of the ancient pyramids of Giza or the Burj Khalifa. Well, these are both famous attractions in the Arab world, where Arabic is the official language.
The majority of the Arabian population can't speak English, so if you're planning on making a few friends in any Arab country, being able to speak Arabic is an absolute must.
Another sector that is growing steadily in the Arab world is telecommunications. Within less than a decade, many local companies have managed to successfully compete internationally as global players.
Islam is the most widespread religion in the Arab world, and it serves as a framework through which many Arabs see the world. Through your study of Arabic, you will pick up knowledge of Islamic traditions and beliefs that will introduce you to a new religion, or to gain insight into the second largest religion in the world.
So clearly, there are many reasons why you should learn Arabic.
Okay then, we've talked about the reasons you should learn Arabic, but how should they get started, Yafa?
Well, it's as simple as learning your first word in Arabic and building up from there.
The fact that will surprise you is that you already know some Arabic.
الكحول, ليمون, سكر.
Many English words have been acquired directly from Arabic, or else indirectly by passing from Arabic into other languages and then into English. So you must have said some Arabic words before.
Let's teach you something that is very useful. All Arabic vocabulary is made up of root consonants that you can easily memorize.
Can you explain this further, Yafa?
Sure, Alicia. For example, there are loads of words derived from the 3 letters kaf, ta, ba, which are equivalent to the English letters K, T, and B. and they are all connected in some way to writing. The verb كتب, which means he wrote, كاتب, which means writer, كتاب, which means book, and so on.
To better understand this point, we'll compare it to English. In English, we have many words derived from the same three letters. For example, run, runner, and running are all derived from the three letters R-U-N, and the three words are related to each other. It's the same thing in Arabic. You see the similarity in all of those words, don't you? All of those words come from the same three letters, so even if you only memorize the three letters K, T, and B, you could in many cases take a really good guess at the meaning of a word, since you know it has something to do with books and writing.
Exactly. That makes things much easier to learn.
Well, you'll learn more about Arabic writing in episode 4, so stay tuned. Now, try saying your first word in Arabic. Listen and repeat after Yafa.
شكراً.
Now your turn.
شكراً.
Try it again.
شكراً.
Well done. You just learned how to say thank you in Arabic. We've covered a lot of things already, so why don't we wrap up the first lesson and recap on what we've learned. In this lesson, you learned the benefits of studying Arabic. The Arab world has a colorful history with many things for you to see and learn, and to say thank you in Arabic, it's
شكراً.
In the next lesson, we're going to demystify Arabic pronunciation by taking a look at the sounds of Arabic, so be sure to watch the next video.
أهلاً بكم, أنا كارول. Welcome to ArabicPod101.com's أبجدية Made Easy, the fastest, easiest, and most fun way to learn the Arabic alphabet, the أبجدية. Over the next 20 lessons, you'll learn everything there is to know about the reading and writing of the Arabic language. By the end, you'll be ready to dive into the world of Arabic literature, make your way through Arabian cities, and really accelerate your Arabic study. Ready to start? Then let's go. The Arabic alphabet contains 28 letters and their variations. Seeing them laid out like this might seem intimidating, but the trick is to take it step by step, letter by letter. Don't worry about how hard it looks now, just stick with me and in a few short lessons you'll see how easy it actually is. I have some really good news for you. Arabic is largely phonetic. This means words are pronounced exactly like they're written. Also, most Arabic sounds have counterparts in English. We'll use this similarity to English to tackle the Arabic writing system. Let's separate the letters into two types. The first type are the Arabic letters that have English counterparts, and the second type are those that don't. In this lesson, we learn two letters needed to write the pronoun I in Arabic. Both of them belong to the first type, so expect them to be really easy to pronounce. Ready? Let's begin. We'll start with Alif. So what sound does this letter make? That's easy. It's just like its English counterpart A in the word apple. Alif is very easy to write. It's basically a vertical stick. Now it's time to take out your pens and pencils. We're going to practice writing. Find some paper and follow along. We'll practice writing them so you can get used to the shapes. Okay, here we go. Alif. Nice! Time for the next letter? Not quite. You just saw the isolated version of Alif. However, Arabic is a cursive language. That means every letter in a word connects to the letter before or after it. So every time I introduce a new letter in this series, I'll also show you how it's written in all its possible positions. Let's get to know the different possible positions for a letter in Arabic. It's always one of four: isolated, initial, medial, or final. Let's look at each of them. Isolated means that the letter has no letters before it or after it. It's the standard form we learned just a few minutes ago. Initial means that the letter lies in the beginning of a word, so it's connected to the letter after it, but has no letters before it. Are you confused because the initial position connects to the letter to the left of it? That's because Arabic is written from right to left. Medial means that the letter is connected from back and front to other letters. And final means that the letter is the last letter in a word, so it's only connected to the letter before it. With the exception of 6 letters, we must learn the 4 possible forms for all the letters in the Arabic alphabet. Those 6 exception letters don't have a distinct medial form and are instead written with their final form without being connected to the next letter. Their initial form is the same as the isolated form. By the way, the letter we learned today happens to be one of those exceptions. That means we only have to learn two forms, isolated and final. You already learned the isolated version, so you just need to learn the final version. Let's write it. Alif. Now we will learn the final letter needed to write the word I in Arabic. That's noon. The noon is pronounced just like the English N. Pretty easy, right? It basically looks like a semicircle with a dot on top. Remember that this is the isolated form. Let's write it. Noon. You got lucky with your first letter, but noon requires that you learn all four forms. Let's get them all out of the way at once. So we have the initial form for when noon appears at the beginning of a word, the medial form for when it appears in the middle of a word, and the final form for when it's at the end. Now try to write all three. Noon. Great! You've already learned two letters of the Arabic alphabet. I think you're ready to learn your first Arabic word. The word you learned to write today is ana. This word means I. The first alif is isolated because it's at the beginning of the word. The second and the third letters, noon and alif, are connected. You may have noticed that the alif at the beginning has a little mark on the top. When alif is at the beginning of the word, we add this mark to it, but it's still the alif sound. There's an exception to this rule, but you can read about it in the lesson notes, and we'll talk more about this mark in a later lesson, so don't worry too much. Now try to write it yourself. Ana. Now it's time for Carol's tips. By now, you must be overwhelmed by all the different variations and exceptions. And you also might be worried about that weird mark in the word you learned today. Don't worry, you don't need to understand everything 100% by the end of this lesson. I'll present the new concept slowly over the rest of these lessons, and you'll soon find that Arabic writing isn't all that scary. Have you ever heard the Arabic word ab? In the next Abjadiya Made Easy lesson, you'll learn what it means, and most of all, how to write it. See you there, salam!
Hi everyone! Welcome to the Ultimate Arabic Pronunciation Guide. In this series, you'll master Arabic pronunciation. Proper pronunciation is essential in Arabic, and in this series, you'll learn it in a fast, comprehensive, and easy way. In this first lesson, you'll learn about the building blocks of the Arabic pronunciation system that will help you in future lessons. Arabic uses an abjad writing system where each symbol is codified as a consonant. All 28 letters in the Arabic alphabet are consonants. There are no letters that represent vowels in Arabic. This does not mean that the Arabic language lacks vowels altogether, though, because vowel sounds do exist, but they're just implied. Consider this English example. See if you can guess the sentence. Even without the vowels, it's very likely that you figured out that the correct reading of this sentence is, he went to the park. This is similar to what it's like to read in Arabic. But be careful not to fall into a very common trap. As you're learning to speak correctly, you shouldn't concern yourself with all the letters. That's right, forget them. You care about the sounds of Arabic, and here they are. There are 28 consonant sounds and 6 vowel sounds. Each symbol that you see here represents a single sound determined by the IPA, which is a standardized way to represent sounds without the baggage that's often involved with traditional letters. By using all of these sounds, you can form every single word in Arabic. Still seem complicated? Well, how about this? Of the 28 consonant sounds in Arabic, you already know 19 of the original sounds. That's right. If you're a native English speaker, then you already make these sounds every day. You can also ignore all of the vowel sounds for the same reason. The only thing standing between you and perfect Arabic pronunciation is 9 new consonant sounds. You can handle that. Now let me introduce Parihan, who will be helping you to master these new sounds.
مرحبا أنا بريهان.
Parihan will be giving you native pronunciation examples for you to imitate. But for this first lesson, just sit back and listen to the unique sounds of Arabic.
حتى رد صوت ضوء طول ظل قوي غالي عالي.
In the next lesson, we'll look at the top 5 pronunciation mistakes Arabic learners make. You'll want to make sure not to fall into these common traps. After that, we'll start going through the vowels and consonants of Arabic. This is your chance to learn how to correctly say all of the words you just heard. We'll finish up the series by covering some special topics that will really make your Arabic sound natural. To wrap up this lesson, here's a question for you. Why is it important to spend time on learning proper pronunciation, even if you're already an advanced speaker? The answer, you will be understood, and this will help you build more confidence as you communicate in Arabic. As beginners, you're creating a strong foundation to build on. And for more advanced students, this is your chance to improve your accent and lose any bad habits you may have picked up. What is the hardest part of Arabic pronunciation? Tell us about it in the comments. See you in the next Ultimate Arabic Pronunciation Guide lesson.
Hi everyone, I'm Parihan and today we're going to have the top 25 Arabic phrases. So let's begin. Assalamu alaikum. Hello. Assalamu alaikum. Hello. So this is the most basic greeting we have in Arabic. So if you enter anywhere, please say Assalamu alaikum. Sabah al khair. Good morning. Sabah al khair. Good morning. And this is so easy. When you see someone in the morning, just tell them Sabah al khair. It sounds cool. Masa al khair. Good afternoon. Masa al khair. That is good afternoon. تصبح على خير. Good night. تصبح على خير. That is good night. When someone goes to bed, you simply tell them تصبح على خير. Good night. ما اسمك? What's your name? السلام عليكم. ما اسمك? Hello, what's your name? أنا بريهان. I am Parihan. So in reply, the other person says أنا and then their name. أنا means I am and then they put their name. So ما اسمك? What's your name? أنا بريهان. I am Parihan. تشرفنا. Nice to meet you. تشرفنا. Nice to meet you. So now you have a whole conversation. ما اسمك? أنا بريهان. تشرفنا. What's your name? I am Parihan. Nice to meet you. كيف حالك? How are you? كيف حالك? How are you? How are you doing? السلام عليكم. كيف حالك? Hello. How are you doing? أنا بخير. شكرا. ماذا عنك? I'm fine. Thanks. And you? And this is the reply to السلام عليكم. كيف حالك? That is hello. How are you? And you say أنا بخير. شكرا. ماذا عنك? I'm fine. Thank you. How about you? من فضلك. Please. من فضلك. That means please. So you can say اجلس من فضلك, which means please sit down. شكرا. Thank you. شكرا, which means thank you. شكرا على الهدية. Thank you for the present. عفوا. You're welcome. عفوا. You're welcome. So from the beginning, شكرا على الهدية. Thank you for the present. And you reply, عفوا. You're welcome. نعم. Yes. نعم, which means yes. So for example, you can say هل تريد قهوة? Do you want coffee? And you reply with نعم. Yes. And you can also add من فضلك. من فضلك, please. لا. No. The opposite of it, لا. لا. which means no. So one more. هل تريد قهوة? Do you want coffee? No. لا. And you can say شكرا. Thank you. حسناً. Okay. حسناً. Okay. فلنذهب إلى الحديقة. Let's go to the park. And you say حسناً. حسناً. Okay. عذراً. Excuse me. عذراً, which means excuse me. So for example, you can say عذراً علي الذهاب. عذراً علي الذهاب, which means excuse me, I have to go. أنا آسف. I am sorry. أنا آسف, which means I'm sorry. For example, you can say أنا آسف على التأخير. I'm sorry I am late. كم الساعة? What time is it? كم الساعة, which means what time is it? You can ask someone كم الساعة? كم الساعة الآن? Which means what time is it now? And you can say it's 1:30. إنها الواحدة والنصف. إنها الواحدة والنصف. أين المرحاض? Where is the restroom? أين المرحاض? Where is the restroom? So you can say عذراً أين المرحاض? Excuse me, where is the restroom? انتظر لحظة. Wait a moment. عذراً انتظر لحظة, which means excuse me, wait a moment. بكم هذا? How much is this? بكم هذا الفستان? How much is this dress? الحساب لو سمحت. Could I get the check, please? So for example, if you're in a restaurant, you can do this simple hand sign, which is like this, and you say الحساب لو سمحت. الحساب لو سمحت. Could I have the check, please? النجدة. Help. النجدة, which means help. So for example, you can say لقد سرقت حقيبتي. My bag was stolen. النجدة. Help. أراك لاحقاً. See you later. أراك لاحقاً, which means see you later. So when you say goodbye to your friend, you tell him أراك لاحقاً. And if you're saying goodbye to a group of friends, you say أراكم لاحقاً. أراكم لاحقاً. مع السلامة. Goodbye. مع السلامة, which means goodbye. أنا ذاهب إلى المنزل. مع السلامة. I'm going home. Goodbye. And that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and please subscribe and comment below about your favorite Arabic phrase. Goodbye. Oh, yeah. Oh, no. Okay.
Hi everybody, this is Nora from ArabicPod101.com and welcome to our new series, Ask an Arabic Teacher. In this series, I'm going to be answering some of your most common Arabic questions. The question for this lesson is, which dialect of Arabic should I learn or focus on? The variant of Arabic you should learn depends on your goals and what you want to achieve using your knowledge of Arabic. If you want to learn Arabic to become a professional translator, work in politics, read newspapers, or write reports for work, then you should definitely focus on Modern Standard Arabic. On the other hand, if you want to be able to communicate with Arabic-speaking people, you have to learn a popular dialect that's widely understood, like Egyptian Arabic or Levantine Arabic. As Nelson Mandela once said, if you talk to a man in a language he understands, that goes to his head. If you talk to him in his language, that goes to his heart. And let's get the facts straight. Nobody speaks Modern Standard Arabic in their daily conversations, not one person in the whole entire world. To understand the difference in usage between Modern Standard Arabic and dialects, you need to know what Modern Standard Arabic and dialects mean to Arabic-speaking people. Babies learn the dialect of their country or region first to communicate with their parents. Then, when they go to school, they start learning how to read and write Modern Standard Arabic, because this is what they will use to read textbooks, take exams, read books and newspapers. They will learn it from kindergarten up to the end of high school. But depending on their major, they might take more Modern Standard Arabic courses throughout their college years. For example, if their major is translation or journalism, they will continue taking classes because that's what the news, the formal and legal papers is written in. Other than that, Social media, speaking with professors, coworkers, teachers, friends, and family is all in dialect. That's why the average Arabic-speaking person might make a lot of mistakes when trying to use modern standard Arabic. Even Arabic speakers need a lot of proofreading when they're writing a very important document. What about choosing between dialects then? Variants of Arabic dialects sound pretty different from each other. They're almost like a different language. Choosing the dialect to study, of course, has to do with the region of the Arabic-speaking world you're interested in, but you should keep another factor in mind. Some dialects are easier to learn and pronounce depending on your native language. For instance, I noticed that Levantine dialects are easier to learn than Egyptian dialect if your native language is Japanese. That's because of similarities in rhythm and phonemes. So listening to different dialects is a good way to get a feel of how they sound before you make up your mind. Keep in mind, though, that the most widely understood Arabic dialects are Egyptian Arabic and Levantine Arabic, because of how popular their media is in the Arabic-speaking countries. I hope you liked our lesson. If you have any more questions, please leave a comment below, and I will see you in the next episode. Salam!
Hi, welcome to Introduction to Arabic. My name is Alicia, and I'm joined by...
Hi everyone, I'm Yafa.
In this lesson, you'll learn the basics of Arabic grammar. Word order refers to the order in which words are structured to form a sentence in a given language. Consider the English sentence, I ate an apple. But first, let's remove the article an here for simplicity. So we're just left with, I ate apple. The basic word order for English is subject, verb, object, or SVO for short. If we break down the English sentence, I ate apple, we can see that the subject I is presented first, followed by the verb ate, and then finally, the object apple is positioned last. This is the basic word order for sentences in English.
Now, let's compare that same sentence, I ate an apple in Arabic. أكلت أنا تفاحة. If we break down the Arabic sentence, we get the verb أكلت, which means ate, followed by the subject أنا, meaning I. And finally, we have the object تفاحة, meaning apple. Arabic is actually written in red from right to left. We will cover this aspect more in the next episode on writing. The word order for Arabic then is verb, subject, object, or VSO for short.
The same sentence in Arabic then is essentially ate I apple. Verb first, then subject and object last.
Okay, let's move on to the next section.
English is what is called a subject-prominent language. This simply means that the subject is slightly more important than other components in the sentence. It's the key piece of information other components in the sentence relate to. Who is doing the action is slightly more important than what is being done or which object it's been done to in English.
Arabic, on the other hand, is defined as a null subject language. That essentially means that the subject isn't valued as much in Arabic as it is in English. In fact, Arabic speakers would likely omit the subject from a sentence altogether wherever they can.
Such as when the subject was about you, the speaker, or if the subject has already been established and you're just continuing the conversation.
Let's take a look at this phenomenon on null subject in a bit more detail.
More often than not, if you wanted to say, I ate an apple in Arabic, you would not say,
أكلت أنا تفاحة.
Instead, you would more likely say, ate apple in Arabic,
أكلت تفاحة.
where you omit the subject I. Most Arabic sentences are constructed and spoken like this in real life.
أكلت تفاحة.
In most situations, such as a one-on-one conversation, it's clear that the person who's speaking is the subject. In cases where it's obvious who or what the subject is, it's almost guaranteed that the subject will be omitted, and so you're left with
أكلت تفاحة.
On the other hand, when it's unclear who or what the subject is, or if you wanted to place emphasis on the subject, like if you wanted to declare from a group of people that it was you who ate the apple, then you would include the subject.
أكلت أنا تفاحة.
But more often than not, most sentences spoken in daily Arabic conversation can be spoken without including the subject at all, particularly if that subject is you.
فتحت الصندوق. عدت إلى المنزل بالقطار.
Knowing this, we can easily express any simple action in Arabic using just the object and the verb. Try to create the sentence, I ate a hot dog, from this set of words.
أكلت hot dog.
Okay, got it? So we know the verb order of Arabic is VSO. The verb goes first, so let's put ate here. Next would come the subject, but as we learned earlier, we can afford to ignore the subject since the speaker is the same person taking action. Finally, we can add the object hot dog at the end there. And that's it.
أكلت hot dog.
You just learned how to say, I ate a hot dog in Arabic. Well done!
أكلت hot dog.
You can create any basic sentence like this in Arabic if you simply know the word for the verb and the object in Arabic. Let's wrap up this lesson by recapping what you've learned. In this lesson, you learned that Arabic sentences are formed using a verb, subject, object, or VSO word order. Most sentences spoken in Arabic will not actually contain a subject, especially if that subject is obvious, like when it's you, yourself, the speaker. And lastly, you can create basic sentences in Arabic by putting the verb first and the object last.
أهلا بكم أنا كارول. Welcome to ArabicPod101.com's أبجدية made easy. The fastest, easiest, and most fun way to learn the Arabic alphabet, the Abjadiyya. In the last lesson, we learned two letters, Alif and Noon. These letters have English counterparts. In this lesson, we'll continue our study of the Arabic alphabet by learning more letters that have English counterparts. Ready to go? Well then, let's get started. In this lesson, we'll learn these three letters. Note how they all look a lot like each other. This will help you memorize them. And because these have English counterparts, we know for sure that they are going to be easy to pronounce. Remember the noon we learned in the previous lesson? There are two differences between the noon and the three letters we're learning in this lesson. The first difference is the number and position of the dots. The second difference is that the isolated version of the noon dips beneath the line like this, while the three letters in this lesson don't. Our first letter of this lesson is ba. And yeah, it makes a B sound. You can remember this because the dot is below the boat shape. Let's study the different ways to write it together. Now you write it. Ba. As we studied in the previous lesson, there are many forms for every letter in Arabic. The letter ba has four possible positions: isolated, initial, medial, and final. Let's see the remaining three: initial, medial, final. Now we'll write them. Ba. That's all there is to ba. Let's move on. The second letter you learn in this lesson is another one that looks like ba. Ta. As you can see, the only difference is in the position and the number of the dots. The pronunciation is like the English T, except you should release your breath with a strong burst of air. Try it. Ta. Here's how to write the isolated version. Ta. This letter also has four possible positions: isolated, initial, medial, and final. Let's see the remaining three. Okay, let's write them. Ta. Now let's finish up this lesson with the third letter of this group. Our final letter is tha. That's like the TH in the English word thief. Pretty easy, right? Tha has 3 dots on top of the boat-like letter, written in a triangle-like shape. Tha carries an extra letter, so we add a third dot. A third dot like 3. Here's how to write the isolated version. Tha. You're almost there. Here are the remaining variations of this letter: initial, medial, and final. Once you practice writing these a few times, they won't seem so difficult. Tha. Well done! I think you're ready to learn a new word. Can you read this? It's pronounced ab. This is the word for father in Arabic. The first letter is an isolated alif. We learned that in the previous lesson. Then there's an isolated ba. Pretty easy, huh? Now let's practice writing it. Ab. Now it's time for Carol's tips. Here's a useful reminder for memorizing the characters we've learned in this lesson. For the letter ba, the dot is below the line, and for the letters ta and tha, the dots are at the top. Be sure to add ana and ab to your notebook. We'll be learning new words in each lesson, and by the end of the series, you will have a very useful collection of words that you wrote yourself. In this lesson, we met 3 letters that look alike. In the next lesson, we'll see 3 more letters that look alike. See you in the next Abjadiya Made Easy lesson. Salam! In the first 2 lessons, we covered the 5 letters alif, nun, ba, ta, and tha in the Arabic alphabet. Now we're going to take a look at some Arabic letters that are slightly more difficult to pronounce. I'll try to explain them in a simple way. Ready to go? Let's get started. In this lesson, we'll learn how to read and write 3 letters that look alike. Writing them should be easy, but pronouncing them is the most challenging part. Our first letter is jim. This one is easy to pronounce. It's somewhere between a G and a J, depending on the accent. For example, Standard Arabic, Syrian, or Egyptian. In Standard Arabic and Syrian Arabic, it should sound like the J in the word jam, while in Egyptian Arabic, it sounds like the G in the word game. They're both quite easy to pronounce though. Now let's handwrite the isolated form. Jim. Here are the initial, medial, and final versions of jim. Now we'll write them. Jim. The second letter we learn in this lesson is ha. As you can see, it looks like the jim, but without the dot in the hook. But of course, it doesn't sound like it. Ha is the first letter of the second group, meaning that it has no counterpart in English. It sounds like the sound you make when trying to cool your mouth and throat after eating something very spicy. The closest English counterpart to the sound is H. The only difference is that it comes from a point deeper down in your throat, just like this. Try it yourself. Here's how to write the isolated version. Ha. Here are the initial, medial, and final versions of ha. Now we'll write them. Ha. The last letter we learn here is the kha. This letter, like the ha, has no English counterpart. Kha is a sound some people make when they laugh. It's also similar to the sound people make when they snore. According to phonetic charts, ha is pronounced in a deeper part of the throat than kha. Listen and repeat. Kha. Kha. Both kha and ha have no English counterparts. They're a bit tricky to pronounce, so let's practice these two letters in some words. First, a word which has kha is khad. Khad means cheek in English. And one that has ha is had. Had means limit. Can you hear the difference between khad and had? It might take some time before you can hear the differences clearly, so don't worry about it too much. Here's how to write the isolated version. Kha. Like its two friends, it has three other forms: initial, medial, and final. Now we'll write them. Kha. Let's learn a word using some of these letters. Taj. Repeat after me. Taj. Taj means crown. That's ta in the initial form, alif in the final form, and jim in the isolated form, disconnected from the alif before it, because as we learned in the first lesson, the alif connects differently. Now let's try writing it. Taj. First, write the ta. The boat connected to the alif, the two dots, then the jim in the isolated form. Nice work! Now it's time for Carol's tips. You may feel that Arabic cursive is difficult and has a lot of rules. It might feel foreign at first, but you'll get used to it if you start reading written Arabic frequently. Practice writing some words from the letters we've learned so far. Try the following. Najaha, meaning to succeed. Jan, meaning side. Hajj, meaning pilgrimage. Good job! Well, that's all for this lesson. We'll continue next time with a few more letters that look alike. Don't worry, next lesson's letters are very easy to pronounce. I'll see you in the next Abjadiya Made Easy lesson. Salam!
Okay. Hi everyone, my name is Perihan. Welcome to ArabicPod101.com. And today we're going to learn the top 25 Arabic verbs. Let's get started. Yukun, to be. The first verb we have today is yukun, verb to be. To be or not to be? That's the question. في ديسمبر الجو بيكون برد. In December the weather is cold. It's very easy. يحب, to like. يحب, to like. So for example, you can say أنا بحب الفراولة. I like strawberry. I do, because berry, strawberry, you know. We have a connection. يعمل, to do. يعمل, to do. For example, you can say أنا على طول بعمل الواجب في ميعاده. I always do my homework on time. That's a lie. يقول, to say. يقول, to say. For example, you can say أحمد دايما بيقول الحق. Ahmed always says the truth. يشرح, to explain. يشرح, to explain. For example, you can say اديني فرصة أشرح موقفي. اديني فرصة أشرح موقفي. Give me a chance to explain my situation. يسمع, to hear or to listen. يسمع, to listen or to hear. بحب أسمع الأغاني القديمة. It means I like listening to old music from the 20th century, kind of. 20th, 30s. يروح, to go. يروح, to go. بابا بيروح الشغل كل يوم. My dad goes to work every day. You can say أنا بروح الشغل كل يوم. أنا بروح الشغل كل يوم. I go to work every day. Go to work, go to school. Work. يعرف, to know. يعرف, to know. عنده سنتين لكن بيعرف ياكل لوحده. He's 2 years old yet he can eat by himself. ياخد, to take. ياخد, to take. You probably hear this a lot, like خد الزبالة معاك وانت ماشي, or خد الزبالة معاك وانت خارج. Don't forget to take the trash out. You have to take it out like this. الزبالة. The trash. يشوف, to see. يشوف, to see. For example, you can say بشوف أحسن لما بلبس النظارة. I see much better when I put my glasses on. Yeah, I really cannot see. I do see here. Yeah. You're not John Cena either. If someone says hi, I'm like, who's this? يجي, to come. يجي, to come. For example, you can say النهاردة صاحبتي هتيجي تزورني. Today, my friend is coming to visit me. يفكر, to think. يفكر, to think. For example, you can say من الصبح وأنا عمالة أفكر في حل المشكلة دي. Since the morning, I've been thinking of a solution to this problem. يبص, to look. يبص, to look. For example, you can say بص القطر وصل. Look, the train has arrived. The train has arrived. The boys have arrived with a rabbit. South Park. يعوز, to want. يعوز, to want. أنا عايزة أنام. أنا عايزة أنام. I want to sleep. I'm so sleepy. يدي, to give. يدي, to give. For example, اديني قلم لو سمحت. Please give me a pen. يدي. يستخدم, to use. يستخدم, to use. أنا دايماً بستخدم sunblock قبل ما أخرج. I always use sunblock before I go out. Because it's too hot. It's too sunny. يلاقي, to find. يلاقي, to find. مش لاقية محفظتي في مكانها. I cannot find my wallet in its place. يخرج, to go out. يخرج, to go out. بحب أخرج أتمشى في الجنينة. Which means I like to go out for a walk in the park. يسأل, to ask. يسأل, to ask. وهو صغير كان بيسأل أسئلة كتيرة. When he was young, he used to ask lots of questions. يشتغل, to work. يشتغل, to work. For example, you can say الكمبيوتر بتاعي مش شغال. My computer doesn't work. Work. يدخل, to enter. يدخل, to enter. خبط على الباب قبل ما تدخل لو سمحت. Please knock before you enter. يحاول, to try. يحاول, try. حاول تاني. Try again. And again. يتصل, to call. يتصل, to call. For example, you can say ممكن تتصل بيا بكرة? Can you please give me a call tomorrow? يجري, to run. يجري, to run. النمر بيجري بسرعة جدا. Tigers run very fast. Well, I'm wearing almost yellow, like ينام, to sleep. ينام, to sleep. أنا امبارح نمت متأخر قوي. Yesterday I slept very late. Sadly. That's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the video and I hope you learned something. Why don't you use some of the verbs we just learned to write a comment below? Maybe like the video or subscribe for the channel, and don't forget to visit our website, ArabicPod101.com. Bye bye. My favorite verb is to sleep, because this is very important, and to eat.
Welcome to ArabicPod101.com's العربية في 3 دقائق, the fastest, easiest, and most fun way to learn Arabic. مرحباً, أنا كارول, سررت بلقائك. Hi, I'm Carol, nice to meet you. In this series, العربية في 3 دقائق, we're going to learn basic Arabic expressions. It's super easy and it takes only 3 minutes. In this lesson, you're going to learn how to introduce yourself in Arabic. There are a few other ways to say it depending on how formal you want to be. Let's first look at an informal way to introduce yourself in Arabic. مرحباً, أنا كارول, سررت بلقائك. Hi, I'm Carol, it's a pleasure to meet you. مرحباً, أنا كارول, سررت بلقائك. Now you try it. Start by saying مرحباً, which is the equivalent of hi. Then say أنا, literally I am, followed by your name. أنا كارول is I am Carol. Finally, say nice to meet you. If you're talking to a man, you say سررت بلقائك. If you are talking to a woman, say سررت بلقائك. This phrase means pleasure to meet you. In the English phrase pleasure to meet you, you is a neutral word. You can use it for both men and women. But in Arabic, the word you needs a gender. When you change the last letter in لقائك, a, to an e sound, لقائك, you are actually changing the word you from the male to the female version. Please be careful to use the correct version. Now let's see another way of introducing yourself. In this version, you will say, Hi, my name is Carol, instead of Hi, I am Carol. And we will learn another way of saying nice to meet you. مرحباً, اسمي كارول. تشرفت بمعرفتك. Hi, my name is Carol. I am honored to meet you. مرحباً, اسمي كارول. تشرفت بمعرفتك. What has changed from the previous introduction? Let's take a close look at these together. First, مرحباً, أنا كارول has changed to مرحباً, اسمي كارول. So, instead of saying Hi, I am Carol, we are speaking in a more formal way by saying Hi, my name is Carol. Next, after giving your name, instead of saying سررت بلقائك, you say تشرفت بمعرفتك, or I am honored to meet you, which is a bit more formal. Again, we should not forget to change the ending of the word depending on the gender of the person you're speaking to. It would be تشرفت بمعرفتك for a man and تشرفت بمعرفتك in case of a woman. One more time, here are the 4 ways you learn to introduce yourself in Arabic. Informally, مرحباً, أنا كارول, سررت بلقائك if you are speaking to a man, and مرحباً, أنا كارول, سررت بلقائك if you are speaking to a woman. The formal way to introduce yourself is مرحباً, اسمي كارول, تشرفت بمعرفتك if the person you're talking to is a man, and مرحباً, اسمي كارول, تشرفت بمعرفتك if that person is a woman. Now it's time for Carol's tips. When you introduce yourself in the Middle East or Northern African countries, it's polite to offer your right hand for a handshake or give 3 kisses on the cheeks, although the rules vary depending on where you are. Arab people place great value on politeness. So, for example, it is considered rude to enter a room or a place without greeting everyone. If you use the right sentence to introduce yourself, they'll definitely be impressed. In the last lesson, we learned how to introduce ourselves in Arabic. Today, we're going to learn how to use good manners as we thank people. هل أنتم جاهزون? Are you ready? فلنبدأ. Then let's start. There are several ways to thank someone. Let's start with the most common phrase, شكراً. شكراً. شكراً means thank you. To say thank you very much, you just need to add جزيلاً. شكراً جزيلاً. شكراً جزيلاً. شكراً is a formal way of saying thank you. If you want to thank someone more casually, say متشكر if you're a man and متشكرة if you're a woman. متشكر. متشكرة. This phrase means I am grateful or I am thankful. When someone thanks you, how should you answer? There's no set response like you're welcome in English, but there are a few things you can say. The first is بكل سرور. This means with pleasure. بكل سرور. Another phrase you can say is تحت أمرك, which literally means at your service or at your disposal. If you're talking to a woman, you should say تحت أمرك. تحت أمرك. تحت أمرك. It is often used as a funny way of responding to someone thanking you. There are so many ways of saying you're welcome in Arabic. Another one is لا شكر على واجب, which means don't thank me, it's my duty. لا شكر على واجب. Now it's time for Carol's tips. Shukran can mean thank you or thanks. Arabic language is very emotional, and relations between Arab people are very personal. So what if you want to use an expression that sounds more friendly? In that case, you can use Allah يخليك. This is a nice way to thank someone. That means, may God protect you. In the last lesson, we learned how to thank people by saying shukran and shukran jazilan. In this lesson, we learned some of the most common greetings used in Arabic-speaking countries. هل أنتم جاهزون? Are you ready? فلنبدأ, then let's start. The most common greeting is marhaban or hi. Marhaban. This is a general way to greet people when you see them. A more cultural greeting is assalamu alaikum. This means peace be with you and is generally used only by Muslims. We say it when we meet someone and also when we leave. Assalamu alaikum. Someone could respond to assalamu alaikum with marhaban or hi, but it is more polite to respond to such greetings in the corresponding way. Since assalamu alaikum means peace be with you, when greeted in that way, we should answer back with wa alaikum assalam, which literally means peace be with you too. Wa alaikum assalam. Whether you use marhaban, hi, or assalamu alaikum, it is also polite to ask the person how they are. Kaifa haluka? How are you? Kaifa haluka. Don't forget that in Arabic, the word you needs to have a gender. So, kaifa haluka is good if you are talking to a man, but if you are talking to a woman, you should ask kaifa haluki. Kaifa haluki. When it's time to leave, you can say wada'an or goodbye. Wada'an. The other person can reply ma'a salama, which means be safe. Ma'a salama. Let's review the phrases you've learned in this lesson. Marhaban is hi. Assalamu alaikum is peace be with you. The response is wa alaikum assalam. Kaifa haluka or kaifa haluki is how are you. Wada'an is goodbye. And ma'a salama is be safe. Now it's time for Carol's tips. If you're leaving and you want to show the person that you would like to see them again, you can use ila liqa, meaning see you, or ila liqa'i qariban, see you soon. ila liqa'i qariban. Now you know lots of ways to greet people in Arabic. In the last lesson, we learned the most common forms of greetings in Arabic. Do you remember them? We introduced marhaban and assalamu alaikum, as well as shukran and ila liqa. In this lesson, we're going to learn a very useful phrase. Do you speak English? If you find yourself in a situation where you need assistance in English, this phrase can be a lifesaver. And because you're asking it in Arabic, you can be sure that everyone will understand what you're saying, even if their answer is no. Are you ready? Then let's start. Here's the basic way to ask if someone speaks English. هل تتكلم الإنجليزية? If you are talking to a male. And هل تتكلمين الإنجليزية? If you are talking to a female. هل تتكلم الإنجليزية؟ هل تتكلمين الإنجليزية؟ هل means do. You and speak are merged in the same word, تتكلم for males and تتكلمين for females. إنجليزية means English. This is an indirect way of asking someone to speak to you in English. There are many ways of making it clear that you're asking the person to speak English to you. For example, هل بإمكانك التكلم بالإنجليزية means could you speak English? هل بإمكانك means could you, are you able to, or is it possible to, and is referring to the ability of the person to speak English. Again, if you're talking to a female, you should change the last accent of ka to ki. So the question becomes, هل بإمكانك التكلم بالإنجليزية? التكلم means speaking, and بالإنجليزية is in English. To be more formal, we could add the word please to the request to make it هل بإمكانك التكلم بالإنجليزية من فضلك? In this case, the question cannot mean the person's ability to speak English anymore, because you are obviously asking them to speak English to you. Since in Arabic the word please literally means from your favor, it should also be changed according to the person's gender. So, in case of a female, we should also change the ka ending of please in min fadlika to min fadliki. The question becomes هل بإمكانك التكلم بالإنجليزية من فضلك? The responses you will receive could be one of these three. نعم, yes. نعم. قليلاً, a little. قليلاً. There are a few ways of saying no in Arabic. لا or كلا. No, I don't speak English is لا أنا لا أتكلم الإنجليزية. لا أنا لا أتكلم الإنجليزية. It is exactly the same structure as in English. لا is no, أنا is I, لا means don't. أتكلم is I speak, and الإنجليزية is English. Since this last one is a negative statement, we need to say لا before the verb أتكلم or speak. لا literally means no, but when placed before a verb, it negates this verb, becoming don't or doesn't. Notice also that the verb أتكلم is slightly different than تتكلم, which we learned before. Remember, the verb changes depending on the pronoun used. We are now talking about أنا, Arabic for I. Thus, I do not speak is أنا لا أتكلم. Now it's time for Carol's tips. For those of you who are not native English speakers, you can obviously use this question with any language you need. Arab people study other languages at school, depending on the country they live in, so maybe you'll get lucky. Just substitute al-Ingliziyya with al-Faransiyya for French, al-Italiyya for Italian, al-Ispaniyya for Spanish, or al-Almaniyya for German. In this lesson, you learned how to ask if someone can speak English. In the next lesson, we'll learn how to say excuse me and other ways to apologize in Arabic. I'll see you in the next العربية في 3 دقائق lesson. إلى اللقاء.
Want more Arabic videos like this? Subscribe to our channel.
مرحباً, أنا كارول. Hi everybody, I'm Carol. Welcome to ArabicPod101.com's العربية في 3 دقائق, the fastest, easiest, and most fun way to learn Arabic. In the last lesson, we learned the phrases هل تتكلم الإنجليزية? Do you speak English? And هل بإمكانك التكلم بالإنجليزية? Could you speak English? And we mentioned the word من فضلك, which means please in Arabic. In this lesson, we're going to learn how to use المعذرة or عفواً and أنا آسف and other words when apologizing in Arabic. We should use المعذرة or عفواً when we want to say excuse me, such as when we are ordering something in a bar or a restaurant. For example, المعذرة قهوة من فضلك or عفواً قهوة من فضلك. Excuse me, a coffee please. We can also use it when asking a question. المعذرة أين المحطة or عفواً أين المحطة. Excuse me, where is the station? Sometimes we also hear people say من فضلك or please to draw somebody's attention. من فضلك. If the person is a woman, we replace the ending with ki, so it becomes من فضلك. In case you want to use excuse me to apologize instead of asking something, you should say عذراً. It can be used if you accidentally bump into someone on the street. عذراً. Just like عذراً, we can use أنا آسف when apologizing. It literally means I'm sorry or pardon me. As we learned in the last lesson, أنا means I, so the adjective that follows should be modified according to the gender. So if you're a woman, you should say أنا آسفة instead of أنا آسف. All of these phrases can be used for either excuse me or I'm sorry. But if you really want to apologize for something, it might be better to use a different phrase. That phrase is the verb سامحني. سامحني. It can be translated as forgive me in English. It is a bit stronger, but it can be used in both formal and informal situations. Again, since سامحني means that you are asking for the other person's forgiveness, it should be changed according to the gender. So it becomes سامحيني if the other person is a female. سامحيني. Now it's time for Carol's tips. Please remember that in most of the Arab countries, if you accidentally bump into someone, you don't say forgive me, سامحني, which is for a more serious annoyance. Instead, we say عذراً or أنا آسف, excuse me or I am sorry. In the last lesson, we learned some words used when apologizing in Arabic, including عذراً and أنا آسف. In this lesson, we are going to learn digits in Arabic. Yes, digits, al-arqam, from 1 to 9. And you are going to learn them in only 3 minutes. 3 دقائق. Are you ready? Let's start. واحد. واحد. اثنان. اثنان. ثلاثة. ثلاثة. أربعة. أربعة. خمسة. خمسة. ستة. ستة. سبعة. سبعة. ثمانية. ثمانية. تسعة. تسعة. Okay, now repeat after me. I'll say the digits and give you time to repeat each one. واحد. اثنان. ثلاثة. أربعة. خمسة. ستة. سبعة. ثمانية. تسعة. Great job! What is before واحد? Do you know? It's صفر. صفر. You don't have any more excuses. You can give your friends your cell phone number in Arabic. Let's try together. We use the phrase رقمي هو, which means my number is. رقمي هو. رقمي هو صفر. ثلاثة. سبعة. واحد. اثنان. أربعة. تسعة. ستة. Can you read it by yourself? صفر. ثلاثة. سبعة. واحد. اثنان. أربعة. تسعة. ستة. Perfect. Do you know the Arabic word for 10? In the next lesson, we are going to learn the numbers from 10 to 100 in Arabic. Your task now is to practice the numbers we studied in this lesson from 0 to 9. إلى اللقاء. In the last lesson, we learned the digits al-arqam from 1 to 9. Have you forgotten? Here I'll tell you again. واحد. اثنان. ثلاثة. أربعة. خمسة. ستة. سبعة. ثمانية. تسعة. In Arabic, after digit 9, the digits or al-arqam starting with number 10 become al-a'dad, or numbers. And now let's continue from 10. عشرة عشرة إحدى عشر إحدى عشر اثنا عشر اثنا عشر ثلاثة عشر ثلاثة عشر أربعة عشر أربعة عشر خمسة عشر خمسة عشر ستة عشر ستة عشر سبعة عشر سبعة عشر ثمانية عشر ثمانية عشر تسعة عشر تسعة عشر. And finally we have عشرون عشرون. Okay, now repeat after me. I'll say the numbers and give you time to repeat each one. عشرة إحدى عشر اثنا عشر ثلاثة عشر أربعة عشر خمسة عشر ستة عشر سبعة عشر ثمانية عشر تسعة عشر عشرون. These numbers may seem harder to remember, but you really just have to memorize إحدى عشر, اثنا عشر, and عشرون. As for the rest, you just need to replace the H ending of the digits we learned before with ta followed by the word عشر. Let's not stop at 20. Counting to 100 is super easy. Now I give you the tens. ثلاثون ثلاثون أربعون أربعون خمسون خمسون ستون ستون سبعون سبعون ثمانون ثمانون تسعون تسعون مئة مئة. While you have to memorize a few of these numbers, there are a couple of tricks that will make memorizing them incredibly easy. Notice that ثلاثون is 30 and أربعون is 40. So 40 or أربعون is simply أربعة with a different ending. The final a is replaced with un. أربعون. For example, 80 is ثمانون. The digit 8, which you learned in the last lesson, is ثمانية. So in this case, the iya was removed and replaced with un. ثمانون. The last thing we learned in this lesson is how to form compound numbers above 20. This is also super easy. Take the tens and simply add before them the digits you learned in the previous lesson with some slight changes. Just remember that above 20, wa or and comes between the two words. Let's try it out. How would you say 56 in Arabic? Let's take it step by step. 50 is خمسون, and then add the changed 6 and or wa before 50. So in other words, it is 6 and 50. 6, which is ستة, becomes ستة when you replace the final H with tun. ستة وخمسون. It's done, isn't that easy? Let's make another number. For instance, 98. Take 90, تسعون, and add before it the changed 8. ثمانية. ثمانية وتسعون. After only 2 lessons, you are now able to count to 100 in Arabic. In the next lesson, we are going to put our number knowledge to use. Do you have all the skills you need to go shopping in Arabic-speaking countries? If not, I'll be waiting for you in our next العربية في 3 دقائق lesson. In the last lesson, we learned how to count in Arabic. I hope you spend some time practicing the numbers because they will come in handy in this lesson. We're going to learn how to go shopping in Arabic-speaking countries. Before we go, you need to know how to say, how much is this? بكم هذا? بكم هذا? Are you ready to go shopping? Let's go. You see something you like and you want to ask the shopkeeper how much it costs. The first thing to say is عفواً. Do you remember what that means? Excuse me. عفواً بكم هذا? عفواً بكم هذا? Another way of asking how much is this is to say what is the price of this or كم ثمن هذا? Next, if we are specifying what the object is, we need to know if the object is feminine or masculine. If it is masculine, keep هذا when referring to it, and if it is feminine, use هذه. Then, if you would like to specify the name of the object, you first say el, which is like the, and then say the noun. For example, pen is masculine. قلم. عفواً, كم ثمن هذا القلم? Excuse me, what is the price of this pen? عفواً, كم ثمن هذا القلم? And محفظة is a feminine noun that means wallet. عفواً, كم ثمن هذه المحفظة? Excuse me, how much is this wallet? عفواً, كم ثمن هذه المحفظة? At this point, the shopkeeper can answer by saying just the price, or ثمنه plus the price for a masculine noun, and ثمنها plus the price for a feminine noun. For example, 20 lira, 20 liras, or ثمنه 20 lira, its price is 20 liras. Now it's time for Carol's tips. After asking for the price, we can ask for the number of items we want and combine the words we learned before to make a good sentence. اثنان من فضلك, 2 please. At this point, can you change the numbers according to the gender of the noun that follows in Arabic? We are going to learn how to do this and much more in the next lesson. I'll be waiting for you in the next العربية في 3 دقائق lesson. إلى اللقاء قريباً.
Hi everyone, I'm Gabriella. How are your Arabic listening skills? In this video, you'll have a chance to test them out with a quiz. First, you'll see an image and hear a question. Next comes a short dialogue. Listen carefully and see if you can answer correctly. We'll show you the answer at the end. Are you ready?
المرأة تسأل موظف المتجر عن شيء في متجر الكتب. أي كتاب تريد المرأة أن ترى؟ عذراً، أود أن ألقي نظرة على الكتاب الذي فوق الرف.
أي كتاب فيهم؟
الذي يتكلم عن السيارات.
لحظة من فضلك، هذا هو؟
نعم، هذا هو.
تفضلي.
أي كتاب تريد المرأة أن ترى؟ المرأة تسأل موظف المتجر عن شيء في متجر الكتب. أي كتاب تريد المرأة أن ترى؟ عذراً، أود أن ألقي نظرة على الكتاب الذي فوق الرف.
أي كتاب فيهم؟
الذي يتكلم عن السيارات.
لحظة من فضلك، هذا هو؟
نعم، هذا هو.
تفضلي.
Welcome to the Ultimate Arabic Pronunciation Guide. In this lesson, you'll learn the top 5 Arabic pronunciation mistakes to avoid. These are common mistakes that students of Arabic tend to make. So pay close attention and make sure that you don't make these same mistakes too. Are you ready? Then let's get started. Number 1. Can't pronounce rolled R's. The Arabic R is a challenging sound for most learners of Arabic. Don't be discouraged, though, as it is a naturally difficult sound. Many Arab children have difficulty pronouncing this sound. With enough practice, however, you'll be able to overcome it. The only way to solve this problem is to keep listening to native Arabic speakers and practicing it yourself, or practicing with us. Listen to the following examples.
ورد رد
We'll teach you how to perfect this complex sound in Lesson 6. Number 2. Mispronouncing the L sound. The Arabic L sound is peculiar because it sounds somewhat like an English L, but not exactly. The problem arises when speakers begin substituting the English L for this sound, and when you do, native speakers will notice immediately that Arabic is not your native language. Listen to Perihan and pay attention to the way it's pronounced in the following words.
لون. أهلا.
Unlike the English L, the tongue is ever so slightly flatter and straighter in Arabic. Don't worry if you don't get it right away because we'll break down this sound in Lesson 5.
ع. أ.
Many learners tend to confuse these two sounds because both are throaty sounds that are uncommon in Western languages. The first sound sounds like a deep and turbulent sound that rumbles far in the throat. You'll have to retract the back part of your tongue into your mouth to cause constriction in your throat. This sound is arguably the trickiest sound in Arabic, but don't give up. You'll master it with practice. The second sound is actually deeper in the throat than the first, so deep, in fact, that it causes the vocal cords to stop momentarily, causing a buildup of pressure. It's the sound you make in between the and o in uh-oh. Listen to both of these sounds in a few examples.
عسل. فأر. عائلة.
We'll teach you all you need to know about these two sounds in Lesson 7. There are many dialects in Arabic, so much so that it often feels like each dialect is like a language in its own. This can be daunting for new learners because there are just so many options that it's hard to decide which dialect to learn. This letter, for example, is pronounced like the J in jam in Standard Arabic, and in most dialects except for the Egyptian dialect. The Egyptian dialect, however, is one of the most widely understood dialects of Arabic because of the wide popularity of Egyptian media and movies. In Egyptian Arabic, this letter is pronounced like a regular English G, as in game. Let's listen to the difference one more time. In Standard,
جديد.
and in Egyptian.
جديد.
Of course, both pronunciations are correct. The key thing is to be consistent with your pronunciation. There are two tricky aspects about this letter. The first is that it's a unique sound that does not exist in many languages. Let's listen to how it's pronounced in the word time in Standard Arabic.
وقت. وقت.
The second aspect is that this letter is pronounced differently in different dialects. The previous pronunciation occurs in Standard Arabic and in the Arab countries of Northwest Africa, like Morocco, Algeria, Libya, and Tunisia. In Egyptian and Levantine dialects, this letter is a glottal stop, like the stopping sound in uh-oh. Compare the pronunciation of this letter first in Standard Arabic and then in Egyptian dialect.
وقت. 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 وقت.
Now you know the top 5 Arabic pronunciation mistakes to avoid. Try to be careful so that you don't make the same mistakes. In the next lesson, we'll start learning vowel sounds in Arabic. What's your biggest challenge with Arabic pronunciation? Is it one of these top 5 mistakes? Let us know in the comments. Stick with us and you'll overcome it quickly. See you in the next Ultimate Arabic Pronunciation Guide lesson.
In the previous lesson, we introduced 3 letters that look alike, except for some minor differences. Some were totally different. 2 of them were the first 2 letters of the 8 sounds that don't have English counterparts. Do you remember how to write them? Make sure that you feel confident about the characters from past lessons before you move on. In this lesson, we'll continue by learning 2 more letters that look alike. After that, we'll learn a few more words to add to your notebook. Ready? Let's go! Our first letter is dal. It's just like the English D. Very easy to pronounce and easy to write as well. Here's the isolated form. Dal. It's a single stroke. You start from the top and then form a right angle. And that's it. Done. Just like the alif we learned, the initial form of this letter is just like its isolated form, and the medial form is like the final form. Now we'll write it. Dal. The second letter we learn in this lesson looks like the previous letter, dal. It's the dal. Note how it does not dip beneath the line. We learn 2 letters in the next lesson that dip beneath the line. That's why you should make sure you differentiate between them. This letter is like the th sound in the word this. Do you remember that we learned another letter corresponding to the English th sound? It was tha, and it's pronounced as a silent th, as in thief. This letter's pronunciation is a voiced sound, the, as in this or that. It's pronounced with the tongue between the upper and the lower teeth. It's quite easy to pronounce. Here's how to write the isolated version. Dal. Now let's see how it looks like in its other forms. As you can see, it's just like its lookalike, dal. The initial form is the same as the isolated, and the medial form is the same as the final. If you know how to write dal, then you just need to add a dot to write dal. Handwriting time. Dal. We'll continue learning more letters next time, but for now, let's practice using these letters in some new words. First up is the word jad. It means grandfather. That's the jim we learned in the previous lesson in initial form, connected to the dal we learned in this lesson in its final form. Okay, now try writing it. Jad. Let's start with the jim. Then connect it to the dal. Great job! Let's try another word. إذا means if. We learned the alif in the first lesson and the dal in this lesson. Here you can see that little mark from lesson 1 is now at the bottom of alif and has changed the sound to an E. Don't worry too much about it for now. Now let's try writing it by hand. إذا. Now it's time for Carol's tips. Handwriting is kind of like a signature in every language, and no 2 people's handwriting is the same. It's better to learn the basics and the standard form of the alphabet and get used to it first, then develop your own style. Good luck! That's it for this lesson. In the next lesson, we'll meet our next 2 letters, which look a lot like the letters from this lesson. Salam!